right. Thanks, Andrea, for setting a new location today with the 100-degree weather. I think that we like this a lot better than what we might have across the street at the moment, so thank you for that. You got the microphone on?
Yes, that's good.
Is it on?
Yes.
Okay, okay, thank you. Yeah, this is the time to, get to a cool spot, especially people out there that struggle with the heat. So that's kind of like my public service announcement. Make sure you're hydrated and in a comfortable spot. So I'd like to start off by announcing that at my request, the Division of Taxation will be extending the June 30th deadline for nonprofits to renew their certificate of exemption by 60 days. And thanks to the reporting on that. That makes the new deadline of August 30th. And we'll be contacting everybody. The background, 2017 on this issue, General Assembly passed a law requiring nonprofits to apply for renewal every 4 years. The renewal deadline for any nonprofit form before July 1, 2017 was originally slated to be tomorrow at June 30th. The new extension applies to organizations whose certificates will expire prior to the extended filing deadline of August 30th. And right now, government, we need to make sure we're working not only with our small businesses, but also we need to respond to our nonprofits, providing them flexibility that they need to be successful. And every day we are working on issues, including a recent one down in Galilee, where a state parking lot was closed around 8:30 in the evening, and businesses down there were going to be impacted. So we've stepped in, and now it's back to 11:30 or so, 11 o'clock. So any small area out there, if you're watching, if you have a business, you have these issues that you're facing, it makes sense to be addressing. We're more than happy to address that, and that's why I asked the division this morning to change when this was brought to my attention. So I'd also like to share a little good news about our economy. Rhode Island is showing signs of strong economic momentum as we restart the state's economy. Two issues: between April and May of this year, our unemployment rate fell from 6.3 to 5.8. That's a half a point percentage reduction, and we had the largest unemployment rate decline of all 50 states during that period of time. So we're moving in the right direction. Another factor that I think is important, as we know over the years, we've always been that reporting that we're at the bottom of the heap. We're first in and last out. We're going to try to hold on to these positions. That's why I'm encouraging the General Assembly to work with me to release some of the federal dollars as soon as possible. And hopefully we'll work over the summer on that with them to make sure we keep the momentum going. But Rhode Island real GDP grew at a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 7.2%. This is very good news and beat the projections that RIPEC predicted a few months ago, which they predicted a 3.5 and reported out at 3.5 as if it was a reality when it was just early figures. 7.2 first quarter GDP growth. It's higher than the New England growth rate of 6.7, and it's higher than our neighboring states of Connecticut, Massachusetts, Maine, Vermont, New York, and New Jersey. So I think that's good news. How do we hold on to it? That's the $64,000 question, but we have the ability to actually make that happen through a combination of things, including working on that 2030 plan that we're working on right now, the Rhode Island 2030 plan. Yesterday we had some good news in the local economy. Not only will there be music in Newport this summer, there will also be water fire in Providence this summer. And last night's Commerce Board meeting, I was glad to share that our administration is committing $300,000 to ensure water fire continues this year. Water fire is iconic. It's a tourist attraction. It's an economic driver. And we all know, at least we should know, that Providence has been hit really hard during the last 15, 16 months. In fact, the figures that we have has been much as a 70% overall at one point in time reduction in the economy. That's why we're we're happy to hear some of the businesses are going to be back fully in September, and we're going to continue to contribute into ways that we can bring people into the city, so our local small businesses can benefit by that, and also the fact that the tourism is really important to us, and we're signaling out now, not only there's music in Newport this summer, but there'll be water fire in Providence this summer. Before I talk a little schedule this week, so it was reported yesterday that a two-month-old child died under temporary custody of the DCYF, and I just want to pass along our condolences and our sense of sadness that we feel to the families and the people who have been impacted by that. DCYF and Wesley Police Department are both conducting investigations into this matter. Additional information will be provided as we learn more. This morning, I had prearranged visits to both the DHS and the DCYF in advance of this as part of the second 100 days, where I'm out meeting the staffs and meeting with the management teams. So it's important that I get my feet on the ground and that we're doing that. And obviously the discussions really have impacted, this event has impacted DCYF in a significant way, and that people who are working there are trying to get to the bottom of the issues, and then once we have those, we'll share those. The rest of the week, tomorrow morning, we'll be announcing Rhode Island's back to school COVID-19 guidance, which we will have a separate press event, and then tomorrow afternoon I'll be joined with Secretary Jones and Director Shrest. They'll join me for media availability to discuss Secretary's review of department policy, operation staffing, and quality standards of care at Elena Slater Hospital, and we'll also be sharing our vision of what Elena Slater looks like going forward. And on Thursday, I'll be joining the DOT for the reopening of the Manville Bridge between Cumberland and Lincoln. I know that the people in our area of the state are going to really appreciate that. And finally, before I wrap up, I just want to, in my formal comments, I want to wish all Rhode Islanders a happy 4th of July. There's no question that this is a different 4th of July than we had experienced last year, and we really should be counting our blessings. So we're going to have a great 4th here in Rhode Island. Enjoy the fireworks, enjoy your family, and with that, I'll hand it over to Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon. Like the Governor, I also want to express my sympathy, heartfelt sympathy to the family of the child that passed away on Sunday night. Keeping the family and the caretakers on my thoughts and prayers. I want to take this moment also to remind everyone out there during these high temperatures that the Rhode Island Emergency Management Agency has a list of calling places, calling locations. So make sure that you visit their website. It's the Rhode Island, it's riema.ri.gov. The calling centers list is there. If you don't have access to the internet, make sure to call the United Way 211. I want to take this opportunity to say thanks to the 211 team and the United Way team that always are there available to assist every time that there is a need. So call the 211 and they can tell you where is going to be the nearest calling center location nearest to you. I also want to express my gratitude to Governor Mckee and the Commerce Corporation. Thank you for your leadership, making sure that water fire continues. While I was the council president for Ward 15, where the water fire art center is located, but even before that, I was a strong supporter of water fire. I believe that they are a great asset for the city of Providence and for the state of Rhode Island. They bring a lot of economic activity to the city and the state, and I'm so glad to see the leadership shown by the governor, making sure that water fire continue. Also, I want to make sure to remind everyone that the moratorium for evictions is gonna be, extended until July 31st. If you have any if you need any assistance with your rent or utility, we want to remind you that there are funds available through the Rhode Island Housing Corporation. If you go to the rhodeislandhousing.com rent relief RI, you're gonna be able to apply, and if you qualify, you're gonna have, get assistance for your rent. If you're owed money for your rent, and also you're gonna get assistance for your utility bills. You can apply there. That said, I'm gonna say that housing continued to be a top priority for me, and being happy to continue to have conversation with leaders in the housing field here in Rhode Island. And I was fortunate to have the opportunity to join the governor in Smithfield yesterday for a ribbon cutting of affordable housing, 42 units of housing in Smithfield. And this is just another example of how some beautiful affordable housing can be built in any community in the state of Rhode Island. And every community needs affordable housing. That was a great day yesterday for a great event. Looking ahead, I can tell you I'm gonna be joining the Rhode Island Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. They're gonna have an event, Latina Women's in Business. That's gonna be in Pawtucket on Wednesday. And also, I'm gonna be visiting my old place at the Providence City Council for the first meeting coming back this week. And finally, looking forward to joining the governor and all of the Rhode Islanders that are gonna be coming over to Bristol for the 4th of July parade on Monday the 5th. I'm so looking forward to that, and happy 4th of July for all of you. With that, I'm gonna pass it back to the governor.
All right.
Governor McKee?
Governor, you mentioned the.
I'll bring this over. I got it.
Oh,
Don't
thanks.
worry.
Governor McKee, with the question of not-for-profit status for so many Rhode Island organizations, it was a great idea to extend the deadline. At the same time, given the sheer volume of not-for-profits that have excessive corporate salaries, I mean, three names come to mind that everyone would know, where the executive director on a not-for-profit makes in excess of $250,000 a year. Is it time for Rhode Island to reevaluate the process so that in cases like those organizations or a hospital where a 7-figure salary and benefits package is put to an executive, can they be construed in any way as not-for-profit, and should they realize the benefits of being a not-for-profit?
Yeah, so I just give a shout out to our not-for-profits over the last, certainly over the last 15, 18 months for stepping up. The point of it here was to to actually address an issue that we got slow out of the gates certainly under my watch in terms of notification, and we corrected that. And so now we're going to give everybody that 60 days. That's not in the same category as what you're talking about. That's up to the boards that run those organizations, and they need to make sure that they continue to qualify as nonprofits, in terms of federal guidelines and the IRS and that type of thing.
No, and I understand that. It is up to the boards. But at a certain point, the state of Rhode Island Department of Revenue is clearly entitled to make their own decisions. And clearly, when you have people making over a 5 or 6 period, over $1 million, quote unquote, helping the poor, isn't that egregious?
Well, again, we took action because of the 8,000 nonprofits that had to come to a deadline. We don't want them to lose their nonprofit status in any way, shape, or form because they are important to us.
All right, Steve?
Governor, I think I heard you say that you met yesterday with the leadership of DCYF and Health and Human Services?
This morning.
This morning.
Yeah, which was a pre-scheduled event. That wasn't because of the death of the child, but it was already scheduled on their calendar.
And you said that the death of this child impacted them in a significant way. Would you amplify on that, please? And are you satisfied with the way things are running?
Well, I think that
DCYF?
I met dozens of people who are employed at DCYF today, as I'm going to do around the state, as I did as a mayor, which was make sure we're connected in with the people who are doing the work. Yes, they're dedicated. Systems can always improve. That's one of the reasons that that there's an investigation going on right now with the Westerly Police and the DCYF on that particular instance. But I would also say, yes, the work that is done there, any professional that is impacted in a way that, through a tragedy like that, is impacted. I would expect them to be, and they were. I mean, they clearly had a, they clearly were impacted emotionally by that event. And so, but at the same point in time, that doesn't stop us from, waiting on the information before we, make any statements about how it occurred and what responsibility there might be over the death.
Respectfully, Governor, first death of a child in DCYF care on your watch.
Yeah.
Did they offer any suggestions or?
Well, I can tell you that it was not a good day yesterday, to hear that news, and I did mention that when I was setting up the meeting a few weeks back that, I wanted to have that meeting before something did happen. It just happened that the timing was exactly the time that I met with the staff and the personnel there. So we don't want, anybody who loses an individual in that family, regardless of the circumstances, whether it was COVID or yes, Sunday evening in Wesley, we value every life. And so from that point of view, yes, it is emotional, and it should be. And if it's not, then we got the wrong people that are actually doing the job.
All right, we'll go to Patrick and Bill, and then we'll make our way over to that side.
Governor, you mentioned earlier that you were hoping to use some of the federal rescue money in the summer. I believe lawmakers are not coming back until the fall. Do you have something in mind that you want to ask them or want them to do to allow you to use that money?
So my conversations, which has been regularly, including this morning with the speaker, is about, there's about $113 million of infrastructure money that's going to become available that I believe that we're going to need to take some action this summer. So once I understand exactly what the guidelines are that we need to get approval on, my intention is to work with the General Assembly before any of those dollars are spent, so that there is a buy-in from our General Assembly, House and Senate on how those dollars are used. So, but we're going to be up against a timeline on that $113 million, and I think that it is an appropriate time to put our best case forward to release some of the $1.1 billion, not only in to keep the economy flowing, but addressing some of the family issues that are front and center, as well as some of the housing issues that the Lieutenant Governor referred to. So we'll see how it'll make out, but in order to get that $113 million, and if the General Assembly would like to put a blessing on it, we're going to have to do something this summer.
Do you have a plan in place for what you would use that money on if they okay it?
We're still working on the guidelines on that, but I would think that the health lab was a front and center issue that, so a portion of the dollars. Tomorrow we'll be talking about the Eleanor Slater and the Zambrano in particular. Those are top priorities relative to infrastructure right now. It's not $113 million, not a small amount of money, but it'll only be, help out in a few projects. But those are two things that are on my mind at the moment.
All right, Bill?
Governor, with the explosion of Airbnbs here in Rhode Island, particularly on Aquidneck Island, there's three issues that keep coming up. Displacement or the lack of housing stock that it creates, noise and other disruption, and also from the Hospitality Association, who are concerned about it impacting hotel revenue. Your position, your overall thought on Airbnbs and how, I don't know, through executive order or anything else, is there a way that your administration can sort of try to get a hold of this or get out in front of it?
So as a mayor, I think these are local issues that I think that could be coordinated on the local level. If Newport is looking for some level of assistance from our office, I was down there more than once in the last few weeks, meeting with the mayor and other elected officials. So I think that topic came up in a way that was troublesome, but I thought, my understanding is they're going to try to approach that locally. As far as the impact that it has on local business, if you're in business, you gotta act like you're in business. And so if you're in business, and you're actually doing business, but you're doing business, you know, under the table, so to speak, we shouldn't put up with that. Everybody needs to be on a level playing field when they're operating a small business or business in the state, and everybody should be paying their fair share, because as I've always said, as a mayor, if somebody's paying too little, then somebody's paying too much, right? And the reverse is true. So everybody should be carrying their weight, and in fact, they're not. I think that locally and the state needs to step in, it should, to make sure there's a level playing field in terms of the lodging issue that you just talked about, Bill.
So you would categorize Airbnbs or short-term rentals as small businesses, at least in terms of?
I do, as long as they conduct themselves as a small business and they're reporting their income and they're paying taxes on that income, and that, to me, that's a part of the economy. I've said also, look at this, there's a place here for big business, mid-sized businesses, and small business. It's not a zero-sum game where you help one and you hurt another. I believe across the board you can help everyone, but they gotta be honest about it. They can't be conducting business operations, taking advantage of the revenue and not participating in the cost to operate our municipalities or our state.
All right, John?
Governor, last Wednesday night, there was a high-profile shooting, 3 teenagers going to get a pizza, honor roll students. A off-duty Pawtucket police officer shoots the driver, 18 years old. If that bullet had traveled 2 inches closer, it would have probably struck his heart. Are you being updated on the course of that investigation?
Other than the fact that it's going on, I don't have any more details than what was reported initially. I would say, though, after the investigation, if it's warranted, I'm confident the officer will be charged and held accountable.
And just a quick question about water fire. It's terrific. However, there's definitely a perception where, because of the riots last year and the violent protests, people are intimidated about Providence. Now, in New York City, they had a shooting over the weekend, and Mayor de Blasio talked about flooding the zone in Times Square. Is there any talk, would that be a state thing or city thing, that perhaps there should be more police visible to make people feel comfortable about coming back into Providence?
Yeah, so we're on the record stating that we have offered assistance to the city of Providence through our state police on a program for the summer that we federally funded. We're still waiting for an answer on that right now. So in terms of having additional support in the community, we'll certainly stand ready to do that. I've had conversations with the chief and others about multiple issues, like you said, like you referred to. And I'll use this opportunity again to say this is not the time to separate our community from our policing. This is the time to connect with our community and our policing. And no matter where it is, that we need to do that. So Providence should be a place that's safe for people to go. And we rely on, in particular, our police work to do that, in addition to other civic organizations with the Violence Institute and others. But we need to partner in and do it in a way that makes sense. Providence has been a safe place to be, over the last year and a half. It's been a little bit more, has turmoil. But that's not a reason why people shouldn't feel safe coming down to water fire. As the Lieutenant Governor said, it's an economic driver, but it is a source of pride, right, for Rhode Island. To be celebrating, at an event like that. You just have to be attending it and to understand that it is a source of pride for Rhode Island. And we made sure that people feel safe when they're there. And I'm confident that they will be safe during those events and beyond that as we reopen Providence.
Katie and then Brian?
Governor, DHS announced yesterday that they're re-upping the contract with Deloitte. I know it's something that you followed when we had the issues with the UHIP system and Rhode Island bridges. Why re-up the contract with Deloitte given their checkered past?
Yeah, so I think that is a very good question, because I asked the same question. And then when the recommendation came to extend the agreement with Deloitte, I asked to meet with the Deloitte leadership. I did that last week. We had a very direct conversation about the issues. At the point of time, there was a consideration for a 5-year agreement with two-year extensions. I made it clear that I wouldn't sign a 5-year agreement. We signed a 3-year agreement. Will be signed, that will be executed, I believe, on the Deloitte side very shortly, with 3 2-year extensions. But I do want to say this, and I did meet with DHS today, and I talked to the staff about this in particular. And why would we tell the people to feel comfortable about that? I think that we're really doing well right now. We had, again, I don't really like, the national rankings are great, but we really did some really significant things in terms of, in a pandemic, working virtually, getting benefits out to people in the state of Rhode Island, virtually without a blip. There has not been a whole lot of complaints on that. I mean, there's always ways to improve. But that's a function of the fact that Deloitte's got it right. But they also assured me that, I believe as part of the agreement, that any promises they made, and they did apologize, quite frankly, with me directly for that, that time frame when things were really very disruptive, right? But they did promise me that any commitments they made in terms of any of the penalties that were promised, those were going to be fulfilled. And I felt as though that when we made it a 3-year agreement, with 3 2-year extensions, that my anticipation based on where they are right now, well, that's what I have to work with, right? Where we are right now, and what is in the best interest of the people of the state right now. I think it is in the best interest of the state to have it extended, and make sure that the working relationship there continues in a way that DHS told me this morning is currently in place. And then we're looking for, to extend those agreements, and we're going to hold Deloitte accountable, and we're going to keep our end of the bargain, and we're going to make sure we pay them for the work that they do based on the quality of that work. My anticipation is going to be high.
Do you think we could get to a point where we would approach these big IT projects, like this one with the HIP or at the DMV in a different way, try to do it locally, maybe not go with these gigantic corporations, because it seems like this has been an issue for Rhode Island time and time again?
Yeah, so the process on that, the request for proposals of the RFP was very open. The amount of people who actually applied were very small. This is a very complicated issue. And when we, I believe it was in terms of the food for the kids in the schools, we were the first ones in the country to actually make sure that was going smoothly. What's that program called? Anybody want to put it in? But that was represented today. So I think it's, when you get into these areas which are very complicated, we're ready to, DCYF, for instance, I put in the budget, and I believe that we put in, I think there's standing right now about $50 million of IT support. We're still on, the back of a napkin on our payroll systems, which is disturbing. DCYF has not had an upgrade on their computer since 1998. This is a big problem for us, and that when I was in the budget process, I said that we can't have that. So we'll go out to the open market. These are really important things, and then we'll try to select the best people. And I always believe that you give preference to quality, qualifications that meet the standards that we need to meet. That would be an in-state, and you'll see more and more about that happening from our travel agents, working with our state travel, with our local travel agents, and where we can apply it, we're going to try to do it over a period of time to make sure that we are taking care of our local businesses.
All right, we got Brian, Nancy, Ed, Anita.
Governor, on the investigation into the death of the 2-year-old, I know it's early on. Did you get any indication in your meeting with DCYF that there was a lack of oversight, a lack of staffing, or anything that would need to be addressed on that end early on? Any indication of that?
No, the only thing I would say on that is that, and I have to kind of like beg off on my experience on it, but there is a certain amount of data and evidence that says that as we place young people, placing it inside the family makes sense. So that was the case here. So that was not a defense, but it was an explanation of why why these 2 young people were with a grandparent, which has been reported, right? So anyways, no, in detail, no. And quite frankly, I think it would be very irresponsible for me to make any assumptions or any conclusions before the report's in. I have very high confidence in our policing as a former mayor and the police chiefs and to do the investigation. Our state police stands prepared to help out in that investigation if we are asked. And I think that DCYF is, unfortunately has had the experience of these things over periods of time. They're going to give a very strong look at it in terms of what policies might have done wrong, if any did, and what, going forward, what should it look like. But I think it's very important that there's a tremendous amount of very good work that's happened at the DCYF. And the people that I've met are very dedicated to that job. So I don't think on one tragedy you turn things upside down, but I think you learn from it and you try to figure out how to make things better. And that was the basis of my conversation with multiple directors that were there that are, working in many different capacities.
On water fire and the funding, how were you able to get the money for that? And should really any program be lacking for money at this point with all the federal stimulus dollars that are coming in? Should people be wrong in assuming that there's basically money for everything to hand out at this point and no programs should be in jeopardy?
No, I think that's a wrong assumption. I think you invest in programs that you get return on, right? And that makes sense for the state. Water fire makes sense. My understanding is that there was about $150,000 that was available in Commerce right now that could be applied towards this tourism factor. And then we will search out for the other $150,000 to make good on the $300,000. But no, there's $1.2 billion sounds a lot, but inside the context of the work that needs to be done, it's a small amount. So we have to be very calculating and very intentional about how to get the most benefit from that.
And just finally, I know you have a separate event tomorrow on Eleanor Slater, but why the turnover at the top there? Do you expect that that'll make a big difference in changing the culture there?
Yeah, so that was one of them was a resignation that we have accepted with Dr. Daly. And then another person that we have put on paid leave because we believe that is in the best interest of the both Zambrano and Eleanor Slater to do that. So I had indicated a few weeks back that I would anticipate that would be some staff changes. We'll have more about that tomorrow in terms of where we think that goes. But yeah, I think that in the case of Dr. Daly, he provided us a resignation. We accepted it. We thank him for his service. We wish him the best as he moves forward on his professional career. But we got a job to do here, and we need to address the report that we received recently. I can tell you, and I can report that I did meet with Director Shrest last night towards the end of the evening, 7, 8 o'clock, and he feels very confident that we're going to meet the corrections that were in the adjustments and the maintenance that was pointed out in that report that will be within the 23 days that we had a week ago Friday.
Nancy? On Eleanor Slater, so was Jennifer White's administrative leave related to the Joint Commission's report on that hospital?
Ask it again, please.
So the interim CEO was placed on administrative leave of Eleanor Slater. Can you say at least whether her placement on administrative leave was related to the Joint Commission's report?
I think that I'll let that go through personnel before I make any real public comments. But yes, I think it is in the restructuring of Eleanor Slater and in particular Zambrano. There's been a subject of this sessions that we've had over several weeks, right? So we know that change is needed, and there's different reasons for changes in terms of personnel, but we're going to do everything we can to get that right on behalf of the patients and the families and the staffing that's there. And I think you'll see that indicated when we get together tomorrow. You can ask those more direct questions of the people who are making those decisions. That I have faith in that those are good decisions.
And on water fire, the managing director had told me yesterday morning they asked for $400,000 from Commerce and they got approved for $300,000. Why the $1,000 short or $100,000?
Well, the number that came to me was 300,000, and I understand that there's going to be some consideration from the Providence City Council to revisit the issue. I'm not sure that's gonna happen or not, but that's what I was told. So the number I was asked, about 300,000, and I saw that there was a path to fund that in a way that made sense, so that's what I supported.
Okay, over here with Ed.
Governor, we're in the waning days of the legislative session here, so I just want to get your reaction in 3 areas. The House Speaker said the Leopold bill is, they were unable to reach consensus, might not go forward this year, so I'd like to get your thoughts on that. 3 gun bills are going forward, but not the high-capacity magazines, so I wanted to get your thoughts on that. And then, there was also a bill to regulate the forever chemicals, PFAS, and do you have any concerns about the cost for municipalities on that area?
Okay, so in order on the what do we call that, the Bill of Rights bill, right? I think that there was really good movement both on, again, going back to connecting community with policing. I thought there was some pretty good movement based on the Police Chiefs Association, the union, and the General Assembly. So I'm disappointed that we don't have an improvement there. I supported that, that move. But I'll take it up, if there's a reconvening in the fall, which the Speaker has suggested may happen, or in the next session. So we don't want to lose momentum on that, because I think that the parties really did work together to try to address an issue that needs to be addressed, and which is accountability with our policing needs to be addressed. The second issue,
Gun bills?
Gun bills, yes. So again, I did support the gun bills. I'm pleased that there's the indication that there's going to be passage on a few of the bills, including one of the ones that the Attorney General was really very adamant about, is in terms of making mass purchases and distributing those guns to people who may or may not entitled to those guns. So I'm happy that that's there. I think the work continues, and in a way that gun safety is a front and center issue, is one of the questions that was just asked right now in Providence. As far as the and I don't know the term, but the water quality issue, I think that right now with the report that I got, and we have one of our people that does public policy do a fairly good review of that a few weeks back. Plus, I think as early as Monday I had that. So I think that on the issues in terms of I believe it's like I don't know how to term it, but 20 parts. The 20 level of will impact very few communities, if any. I believe it's potentially URI may get impacted. And my town of Cumberland could potentially get impacted if they open up a well that has been closed, but I don't think that we're going to, based on my knowledge of that, we're probably not reopening that. So I don't think it's going to have any serious impact. I can tell you that I do work directly with my former superintendent of water, that he works on the Rhode Island Board of Superintendents, and I have been engaged in those conversations. So I think that's a safe place to go. And if the General Assembly chooses not to pass it, then we'll bring that up with the with DEM, and we'll work through up.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. When are you going to put the regulations in place? The Raimondo administration has been working on it, then the pandemic hit, and they said we're too busy. Is that something that's going to be front and center for you if they don't pass a bill this week?
Yes, I think that it is, and I think that it makes sense. When we actually measure against the bordering states, we're competitive with bordering states on that measure. I think it's a safe place to go, and I think it's worth going there, because it's something that we can address right now, and it doesn't have a serious financial impact on water users in the state. We don't really want to put a whole bunch of burden on them at the moment, but we do want to be safe.
All right, we've got time for a couple more. Anita and then Richard. Hi, Governor. Do you feel hamstrung by the legislature for not letting you spend the American Rescue Plan Act money without their permission, unlike what the other states are doing?
Well, I don't feel hamstrung because I agreed to that. I think that it makes sense to engage the General Assembly in a way that they weren't engaged last year. They're elected from all different parts of the state, all 39 cities and towns. So it creates. It's going to take more work, but I think in the end, I think that I think it makes sense. Will I be advocating, as I just said earlier, first of all, we're not gonna let that $113 million go out the window. We're gonna use that for something in infrastructure in the state. And I'll be, working with the General Assembly to make sure we don't miss that, right, that opportunity. At the same time, my plan is to come back with with an ask for as much as a couple $100 million to keep the economy going strategically, to work on some housing issues, some family issues, certainly some hospitality issues. The industries who have been really impacted severely, they're still recovering. And we have this really good opportunity right now to be that state that is not the first in and last out of downturns. But we have to actually invest the dollars to make that happen. So I'll be building that case, and hopefully that will get support from the Speaker and the President and the General Assembly.
And in regards to tomorrow's announcements regarding school reopening, any preview you can give us in regards to that guidance out of the fall?
Other than I've been saying the reason that we vaccinated teachers and we vaccinated workers in the schools, childcare, right out of the chute, certainly a little bit of second guessing on that, but that was the right thing to do. We're in a position to reopen our schools safely, and now we're at about, I think the number was, I'm going to give the wrong number, but I think we're approaching 50% right now, or 60% of the 16 to 18-year-olds that are vaccinated, and then we're about 43%, I think, on the 12 to 15, the last figures I've seen. So we got work to do there to make sure that, as the Commissioner said, which I support, I think that students that are vaccinated won't be wearing masks. I think that the Commissioner spoke about that. We want to clarify that tomorrow formally. But yes, we got to keep on getting people vaccinated, and I believe that the students will be back in the classroom, not only on K through 12, but also on the higher ed, which now I think everyone but one university right now is making a mandate for their students to be in the classroom to be vaccinated. So we think that that's really very supportive of our effort to get people vaccinated.
And the kids that aren't vaccinated, the under 12, masks?
Yeah, we're going to follow whatever the current CDC guidance is. Following the science is important. Certainly, we don't want to be taking any risks over and above what that looks like, that advisory look like. That could change, over time. And also younger kids potentially could be vaccinated. That's something that certainly is being tested in terms of making sure whether it's safe or not. And if the guidance comes out that we want to vaccinate youngsters, we will. I mean, we do measles, we do chickenpox, we do. Young people are vaccinated. So if that makes us safer, then we're going to support that.
All right, right here.
Governor, one of the things that seems to have been lost in the shuffle is how to proceed forward on building a new public health laboratory in Rhode Island. It was originally supposed to be part of a bond in March, and then it got dropped. There was some talk about putting it in the budget, and then it got dropped. I was wondering about how you would define the priority to get something like that done, because it's so critical to preserving the public health infrastructure in Rhode Island.
Yeah, so I agree. I think that the first thing to do is location. We have to get everybody on board on where it's located. So we're still looking at analysis in terms of site work. I think we need to extend it past state-owned sites. That's what I've requested too, so that's all in terms of the strategy. And then I think that we are in a really fortunate spot where we either could go for bonding, but that would take time, or we can use infrastructure dollars that are federally appropriated to address that issue. So I think that we will make progress on that, and it's a priority to me because we know that coming out of this pandemic, that a up-to-date health lab is going to be really important to the health of the people in the state of Rhode Island as we move forward. And it also opens up the potential for some public-private partnerships as well that could participate there.
All right, we can get one more question.
Right here.
Patrick?
Right, hey.
Oh, Ray didn't have a question. I'll come
Wait,
to
wait.
you.
Is this gonna be a press conference, Joseph Mckee talking?
Hold on,
What about the
hold on.
Lieutenant Governor?
We need
Ask the
to,
Lieutenant Governor, she's here for questions. and
Oh,
she
but
has-
everybody else has to ask a question to the Lieutenant Governor.
Ask
That's
the
not
Lieutenant
fair.
Governor a question,
Explain
right?
to something. Talk about what you did yesterday
Uh-huh.
in Smithfield. What is the phone number that people had to call for help from Rhode Island Housing?
So, I think I mentioned that during my, comments earlier. So I went to Smithfield to see, development of affordable housing, 42 units of affordable housing in a community that traditionally, when I think about it, it's not the one that you think about it when you're thinking about affordable housing. So it was important for me to go there and to see that it's possible, and the type of development that was done is an excellent development, the quality of the housing and in the look. So I just went there to see that affordable housing is possible everywhere.
Yeah, I'll put a little add-in on that too, is that I got a nice thank you note. I mean, all these issues are important, especially where the money, $200 million for rental assistance right now and utility assistance. $50 million gonna be released tomorrow or June 30th for mortgage assistance that could help people up to $50,000 worth on their mortgage assistance as well, and there's another $150 million coming. So we wanna make sure that the money goes out. That was one of the topics that I had at DHS today, to really make it very clear that those dollars are important, that we get those out, and we will. And I got a nice, I did sign an extension of the moratorium for low-income housing in particular on the utilities, and I got a nice thank you note from the George Wiley Center. And I just want to make that, because there was some scuttlebutt that the Wiley Center wasn't in favor of the extension, and they were. And we're going to keep on working on that way. But that's not an excuse to people who are watching. If you're having trouble with your utility bills, the moratorium doesn't forgive it. But these dollars that we got that are coming from the federal government can go backwards to last year, to I think January or February to last year, and pay your past utilities. So we're going to be outreaching, but there is a responsibility on the people who are in those circumstances, either having trouble with their utilities or their rent, and soon to be with their mortgages, that they need to be proactive on this. We're going to do our best we can to let you know what is happening, but you need to be proactive to take advantage of these opportunities.
Well, you gotta make Rhode Island Housing also more friendly, because sometimes they are the team, they are the boss, and they don't wanna promote the information. And you need to push Rhode Island Housing to be more approachable to all the community, because everybody gonna need help. It's on you to make sure that Rhode Island Housing is doing. Or put a press conference together with Rhode Island Housing to promote the $200 million.
Yeah, we just had a press conference for that, but right now I'm connecting all the different people out there. And I'll say, if you own a number of apartments that are in that category, or you're a housing authority, we'll bring the mayors in. We just, we're gonna bring the mayors into this discussion. If you're working in any of the, and I was on the call yesterday with Family Resources, right, around Family Resources, and I also challenged them. They're working with a number of people. We gotta get the word out, because we don't want this money to go back to DC. That money belongs to us. That's money that we sent to Washington, so they've sent it back to us. We don't wanna give up any of those dollars.
all right,
Thank
thank
you.
you all. Patrick, if you want to follow up with me, if you have something else, sorry. I thought maybe.
On the water thing, how does that come together? That's like one of those little known issues that only mayors know about.
We're just going to try and grab the governor for one quick question. Folks, if you're listening to us for the first time, if you could take a moment to like our page at facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, and of course subscribe to our YouTube page, where all of this will be stored in perpetuity. Thank you.
It shows I think I got it right. It's URI may have some level impact on their water, and the town of Cumberland could if they reopened a well. And I know the water thing would be good in Cumberland, which has some wells in Cumberland, and we're going to actually reuse open space. to sink wells. That's gonna provide about, I think, 25% of the water for the next 50 years in the city of town. It's gonna keep our rates down.
Yeah, that's the question, what's it gonna mean for the towns, like if they have to put a filtration system on them?
Yeah, right now, the reports I'm getting, and it's coming through Chris Champion, who's my water superintendent for the last few years I was in office. It's actually, and he's really good.
Yeah.
He's zeroed it down to those two.
But the bill's not passing, I think
No, but I
it's
think
gonna go
that you
to,
said internally that we're going to
go to
Yeah, we're
regulation.
gonna see what regulation.
All right, I'll follow up.
Governor, one quick one. On the officer-involved shooting.
What's that?
On the officer-involved shooting, we spoke
Yes.
about it briefly yesterday. The word that I'm getting from a lot of our viewers is that the Cranston Police Department was shut down. And you're a mayor, long-term mayor, you work very closely with police departments. But the Cranston Police Department was taken over for far less than a lot of people feel about the chaos in Pawtucket. At any time soon, are you prepared to issue a statement about, well, under what circumstances the state would have to get involved in Pawtucket involuntarily?
So that's not a consideration at the moment, but we are talking to the police through our office and all our departments in the state, as well as our mayor. So it's the same in Pawtucket as anywhere else. So we'll keep the conversations going, and if we're asked to intervene, we will. And if something really reaches a level where we need to really make a public statement, but I don't think that, we're not there yet, but I'm not discounting that we got an issue in multiple of our communities on some of the gun issues that are going on. And like I've said over and over again, this is not the time to disconnect our police and our communities, but it's clearly the time to hold any police activity, whether it's on duty or off duty, and if they should be held accountable, they should be.
And our class trip?
We gotta go.
Any word?
I haven't got that yet.
Thanks, Governor. Folks, again, if you've been listening for the first time, you can like us, share us, whatever. Independent media relies on you, the independent listener, who isn't willing to settle for establishment media. Listen, folks, on that note, with the Pawtucket situation, Eyes on Pawtucket. We'll be back on live tonight.
I paid attention to that.
8:30-ish, 8:45-ish. Sometimes our standards in terms of production is a little loose. But these are the folks who generated all of the information that has really spread like wildfire through the community in terms of Officer Dolan's long-term issues, Officer Dolan's interaction with local communities, and the willingness, if you will, of a mayor and a police chief to look past it. We're going to be all over it, folks. Coalition Radio Network at www.coalitionradionetwork.com, facebook.com/The Coalition Radio. Folks, we'll talk to you in just a little bit.